Maybe you've already made your birth plan, but you're wondering, how exactly does this play out in a hospital setting? Perhaps you've heard that hospitals can be a little pushy when it comes to their policies and procedures, and you want to be prepared to communicate your birth preferences in a way that makes you heard and respected. In this video, I give you the exact words to say to decline a birth intervention if you don't want it. If you're new here, I'm Kelly, and I teach you how to be empowered and ready for your birth. My philosophy is that this is your body, your birth, your choice. Let's get started. Before we practice declining birth interventions, I want to make sure that you know that you have legal birthing rights in a hospital setting. And these rights are upheld in US based courts. And so I just need you to know that your right to give informed and explicit consent to any and everything that happens to your body or your baby's body is absolutely within your rights. I'm going to link a doc below that explains your legal birthing rights in the United States. Informed consent is not just saying yes to any of the procedures, but knowing why you're saying yes or no to any and all birth interventions that happen in a hospital or birthing situation. Ideally, you won't be in a situation in birth where you have to fight for your birth preferences. This can be possible if you are talking to your providers early and often about your birth preferences, so that you're not doing the advocating while you're in the middle of birth because you're kind of busy doing some other things like having a baby. However, unfortunately, sometimes your provider isn't the one actually there at your birth. Maybe they're off call, or you're interacting with nurses or other people who you haven't met yet, and you're sharing your birth preferences for the first time. This is why I always advise you to bring multiple copies of your birth plan to the hospital and hand it out to everyone who comes into your room, and make sure that they know that you've put a lot of time and intention into this plan. I also advise you to add an informed consent statement on your birth plan. I actually have a template that you can download for free, a birth plan template that has a suggested informed consent statement that you can just copy and paste and make your own. I've put the link to download the birth plan template in the description below. And if you're going to decline any birth interventions that are being recommended by your provider, be ready to sign some paperwork that essentially is a refusal document that lets the hospital know that you're aware this is being recommended, but you have decided not to go forward. This essentially is just the hospital protecting itself. Okay, so now that we have that behind us, here are some ways to say no to a birth intervention that you don't want. It's important to know that no is actually a full statement, but I understand that some people want to have a little more to say than just that. Option number one, I am well informed about the risks and benefits of fill in the blank of the procedure, and I am not willing to enter into further discussion. You can also say, this is my body and my birth. I am informed of the risks and benefits of my choice. You do not have to agree with my choices, but you do need to respect them. Would it make sense to request another nurse to support me? Another way to say this is, I am well informed on current evidence-based research on the benefits and risks of my decision. Lastly, I have put a lot of research into my birth plan, and I'm confident in my choices. I'm not willing to continue this discussion. Please put this in my chart. These are some firm ways to communicate that you're not trying to be difficult, but that you put a lot of research and time into your decisions, and you're aware of the benefits and risks and are making an informed decision. The added touch of asking your provider to indicate this in your medical chart is an important step for the hospital to cover their back when it comes to you going against their quote advice. So that can be an extra step to just get them off their back. And I want to remind you that you can always request a new nurse if you feel like your nurse is not supporting your birth plan. Same goes for your medical provider. I've even seen someone fire their provider in the middle of birth. They're not going to let you birth alone. They're going to have to work it out. In the end, this is your body and your choice. Practice speaking some of these words ahead of time. The goal is to be firm, but also respectful. You can also have a pep talk with your birth team ahead of time about these statements. It might make sense that your partner says some of these things for you because you might be a little busy having a baby. And so teaching your partner or your doula or your friend or your mom, whoever's in the room with you to support you emotionally and physically, teach them these statements as well so that you can be ready or they can be ready to advocate on your behalf. I hope this helps you with some practical scripts on how to decline a birth intervention. And if you are looking for an unmedicated hospital birth, you're not wanting any of these interventions at all, check out my video, Unmedicated Hospital Birth. I teach my 3 top tips for how to have an unmedicated hospital birth.